All right, guys, welcome to Under the Arch Sports. I'm Eric Hobbs,
And I'm David Woldingen.
and it is time for us to give you our preview and some picks as it relates to Mizzou basketball. Getting after it here. Before we get into that, please, guys, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Spotify. All right, David, let's get right into this. Missouri opening the season Monday night at Memphis, and it's a tough way to open the season. Uh, just because that is the first game. Any initial thoughts on that one?
I have no idea what to expect out of this Mizzou team. However, I do like opening up against Memphis at Memphis because you'll get a real idea real quick what we have.
Yeah, that is a nice thing. Is I guess Gates has had a nice his idea of what to do. Gonna find out real fast if he is, at least close, or if it blows up in his face. We'll see. Right. So that Memphis game, part of a schedule that is split up kind of nicely. 13 non-conference games, followed by 18 conference games, SEC play, 31 regular season games in total. And then game 32 will be the first round of the SEC tournament. And then from there, just kind of depends on how many wins this team can rack up. After this Memphis game, you got honestly the rest of November should be pretty uneventful as far as scores are concerned. And yes, I understand the Jackson State game a year ago happened. I'm going to go ahead and make a bold prediction that it doesn't happen this year. We'll see. But just going through the rest of November's schedule, after Memphis, Howard, Eastern Washington, Mississippi Valley State, Pacific, Arkansas Pine Bluff, common non-con Mizzou opponent, it seems. I guess the ADs there maybe have kind of a working relationship or just a long-term deal. Lindenwood. Lindenwood right before Thanksgiving. That is the November schedule. Really, if Missouri loses anything besides the Memphis game, which honestly I expect them to lose the Memphis game, you're talking one, two, three, four, five, six. If Missouri's not 6-1 going into December, it's trouble, I think.
Yeah, agreed. And side note, I remember that Lindenwood game from last year where it ended up being a shot at the end to make bad beats on ESPN because they
Oh,
didn't cover. And
oh yeah.
there were a lot of fans screaming. It was great.
Head into December, you got three pretty juicy non-conference games. December 3rd, home game against the Cal Bears in the SEC ACC Challenge. Yeah, think of your ACC traditional teams, Duke, North Carolina, Cal. Yeah,
uh,
same conference. It's great.
I love it.
Cal is the opponent for the SEC ACC Challenge that Missouri will have. Night game on a Tuesday. That's Sunday. It's the border war in Columbia. Gulp. Number one KU coming to town.
And what I like about that is, quite honestly, the Cal game's kind of a warm up game for that border war game. Because
Yep,
think about it, you're playing Lindenwood before Cal, so level of competition takes a step up and then a whole nother step up right after that. So they kind of have to really pick up their game going into the Cal game, knowing that the KU game's right after that. So they really got to make sure, like competition wise, they're up to snuff, if you will.
agree. Great to have that step up in competition instead of just going from nobody state to nobody state to the number one team in the country who's also your bitter rival. Um, After that, a pair of kind of bye games. Then you have bragging rights, December 22nd, Sunday at noon, daytime start. That's kind of interesting timing, but here we are. And then Missouri will wrap up December and the 2024 and non-conference part of the schedule against Alabama State on December 30th. So looking at non-con, I think Missouri is looking at hoping to split Memphis and Cal. I think that's the goal. And then take your chances against your two rivals. I think that's really it.
Well, and if you come out with a win against Cal and Memphis, uh,
Oh,
I call
that'd be
that
huge.
yeah, I call that a win. Not even looking at the border war because who knows what's going to happen on that one. Same with bragging rights. Both of those games are always you never know what's going to happen, just because they're rivalry games. So get those two wins against Cal and Memphis if you can, and then you might really have something cooking, if you will.
Right. So at this point, you're looking at 13 games. I think you're hoping for 10-3 if you're Missouri. You win those two, Cal and Memphis, and you're 11-2, looking pretty good. Maybe, depending on what other people do, maybe knocking on the door of the top 25, which let's not get ahead of ourselves, but you'd be 11-2 with at least one solid, well, probably two solid wins, honestly. Um, we'll see.
The good
After
news
that,
about
you
that,
go ahead.
I was going to say the good news about that Illinois game is you will have at least three tough battles before you face Illinois, so you have a general idea of what to expect in that game. And hopefully by that time you'll have a general idea of what you're going to expect out of the rotations and out of the players you have, because there's a lot of talent incoming and nobody knows how they're going to gel together. That's why, in my opinion, that Memphis game is going to be really important just to see what you have. And if they come out firing and show all this talent, then you can start looking at, all right, let's reassess.
Yeah, and Memphis is important because it's a true road game. You don't always have those in non-conference play. I think you try to get one, maybe two. So having that is important. I kind of wish it were not the first game of the year, just so it could be a little closer to conference play, instead of having almost 2 months between true road games. But that's the way the schedule is. SEC play right off the bat at Auburn. You know that this is going to be a tough schedule in SEC play, adding Oklahoma and Texas, remember. And you think about, oh, 500 shouldn't be that hard. SEC is as good as it's ever been, as deep as it's ever been. So I'm pulling it up here, just exactly what Missouri has in terms of ranked opponents. Let's count it out. Auburn is number 11 in the country. This is all preseason, of course. Auburn number 11, Florida number 21, Arkansas, Texas, Ole Miss. So that's five ranked games in January. And then going in February, gosh, three, four more. The return game against Arkansas. So 10 of the 18 games in SEC play are against a top 25 team. If all that is accurate, and it never really is that accurate, we'll see what it looks like. As a stronger schedule, first off, especially when you consider you got Cal, you got Memphis, and of course Illinois and Kansas. It is not an easy schedule for Missouri.
Yeah, not at all. If you go 8-8, especially in conference, you're looking at a tournament, I think.
Well, so with the 18 games, uh,
I guess
yeah,
it's nine and
500
nine.
record's huge.
Nine and
Honestly,
nine.
eight, yeah, nine, it'd be 9-9, yeah. 8-10 for this team is not terrible. And 8-10, if you can get there, depending on what you do in non-conference, say you're 10-3, you're what, 18-13? You might be going into the SEC tournament trying to play yourself into the NCAA tournament, depending on the wins and the losses you get and so forth.
Well, and
I
it's going
think
to be
that's
huge.
kind of
It's going to be
kind
a
of the
huge step
goal.
up from last year, considering you didn't win a single SEC game,
Oh,
too.
absolutely. Yeah, you're coming into this having you got a 19 game losing streak going into this. May well hit 20 with this Memphis game, but that's neither here nor there, different team. I think the goal, David, is to make it to Valentine's Day where you're having the conversation seriously about what Missouri would need to do to make the NCAA tournament.
Oh, exactly. And if he can get there, number one, that means you're competing in almost every game. And number
Yeah.
two, you just like your chances because this team, I think, as they gel and get to know each other more, is only going to grow stronger as they get used to the system.
Yeah, and you have a group here that is so much better on paper. I guess we'll just move into this part of it, David. Who's your player of the year for Missouri?
Uh, Mitchell
Yeah.
is probably going to be it, and the one who's going to benefit most of him being the player of the year with a resounding, I guess, solid second year with us would be Tamar Bates. Because I think the pressure is going to be off him to score, and I think he's really going to shine this year without all that pressure on him.
I think you have that effect going on for potentially a lot of guys. So I agree with you, first off. Mark Mitchell, probably the player of the year, the go-to guy, if I had to guess. Just his versatility combined with his size. There's so much talent there. And at Duke, he was a guy. I think his numbers are going to improve substantially just because he's going to, from Duke, where he was a guy, to being the guy at Mizzou, option one, instead of one of the options. So I think that's huge. And yes, Tamar Bates was the best player on this team a year ago. Now he's a solid number two option, maybe, depending on what lineups are going on. He could be the guy, gosh, on the right night, he can be the guy you forget about. And then it bites you in the butt.
He's going
That's
off, and
something
he was the
that,
only he's the only one who had anything going for him where he'd score 20, 25 points. So now with complementary pieces in hand, I really think he could go off almost any given night.
yeah, I mean, come on, you're talking about Bates as a guy on that team a year ago, didn't win a conference game. For most of the year, he was looking at being a 40, 50, 90 guy.
Yeah.
So absolutely, that's that's something where he can benefit a lot. But it's because of Mark Mitchell. Also, look at Marquez Warwick coming out of Northern Kentucky. I think he
Mm.
really could benefit coming from the North, being the guy. We talked about it in the roster reset video. His scoring more points than anybody active in D1 hoops, and he may not be the guy. Similar deal with Bates. He may be forgotten about or just not the focus, so he gets so much more open space to do some work. All right, so we got Mark Mitchell as player of the year, and we talked about how he can help other guys. This team has a number of freshmen. If you had to pick one, David, to have the biggest impact on the season, who would you pick?
Peyton Marshall, 7 foot, 300 pounder coming in. Um,
I'd argue with that.
yeah, phenomenal athlete from what I saw in his highlights. He could do it all underneath. He's not just a big lumbering guy. He can move around. Plus, he's not the only big guy coming in on this team. We have 3 7-footers coming in, so he doesn't
Josh
have to.
Gray from
Yeah,
Carolina.
yeah, he doesn't have to do it all by himself. So he's not going to be out there all the time, and I think people are going to really underestimate the impact he's going to have on the game. And with Mizzou being able to throw 3 different 7-footers out there, including a 7'5" guy, it's really going to take a toll on teams because you can't underestimate the height you're going up against. And when you have fresh legs out there constantly, and these guys are all athletic, and especially with the size of Peyton, he can't be moved underneath like some of the skinnier guys.
Yeah.
Uh, he's going to be a force underneath, kind of like Shaq was in the NBA. Uh, so I'm really excited to see him play, and I really think he's going to be the best incoming freshman.
And if it's not Peyton Marshall, it's probably because it's Honor Boateng. And that's probably my pick for most impactful freshman. And it's just the athleticism combined with the talent. 6'6", 215. So there's gonna be times where it's just straight up mismatch in terms of size on the perimeter. He's got that length to go with the athleticism defensively. He can wreak some havoc and the athleticism to just make things happen offensively. I think there's going to be stretches where Missouri says, "Ooh, okay, are you going to be around for a sophomore year?" I do think he'll be around. I don't think he's a one and done, but I think there's going to be stretches where Missouri wonders. Now, I want to say with the NCAA tournament in year three of the program, yeah, I think the baseline is yes, it's year three, Dennis Gates. You should be in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, I guess so. You also have to consider context. This team went 0-19 in league play. Won what, 8 games total, whatever it was a year ago. So, to some extent, just general improvement has to be considered. With that, let's look at Missouri's tournament chances and our picks, really. I think the goal is to make it to Valentine's Day with the NCAA tournament as a realistic goal. You're looking at the schedule. Missouri ends the season with the opportunity to close fairly strong. In March, there are 3 games at Vandy, at Oklahoma, and then a home game against Kentucky. We'll see what comes of that. But while it's on the road, it's better than playing Alabama and Auburn, I'd say. Carolina, the last game of February there. There's there's a chance for Missouri to close strong. If they get to Valentine's Day in tournament conversation, I think there's a chance. As it is, I'm going to pick Missouri to lose the Memphis game, win the Cal game, and then lose to Kansas and Illinois. And for the non-con, go 10-3. And then I'm going to pick them to go 7-11 in SEC play. So I've got them 17-14 and in a position where honestly, I think Valentine's Day you're talking about, well, they need to get hot if they want to work themselves onto the bubble. And by the SEC tournament, they're talking about having to get to the final or win the tournament to get the auto bid. I think that's where this team is.
Yeah, and with all the talent incoming, I actually think they're going to do a little better than that. I have Mizzou in the non-conference going 11-2. I'm not going to pick the 2 games they're going to lose or win, just because with rivalry games you never know. And
Yeah.
early on, they still might be trying to get their feet under each other, establishing their roles, so they could
Yeah.
come out later on in non-conference against Kansas and Illinois and really come out firing once they get established roles and everything. Uh, so again, I'm not going to figure out which ones are going to win and lose. I just think they're going 11-2. For conference, I have them going 9-9 this year. Yes, it's a tough conference, but I think with the talent on this team, they're going to be competing. They'll win a lot of games they should win. They'll win a few they probably shouldn't win, and they'll probably lose a few they shouldn't win. But it's all going to even out to be 9-9, and that will put them at 21-10. Uh, with a decent chance, especially if they go 500 in conference play, to be in the tournament. And
Yeah,
I
I'll tell
just,
you right now, if this team's 21-10, unless it's a weird way to get there, with this schedule 21-10, I think they're just saying, all right, let's not lose this first game of the SEC tournament to play our way out of the tournament.
I,
I'd
I,
say they're looking at like a 8, 9, 10 seed.
yeah, and I just think there's too much talent on this team not to go there. And yes, I understand how strong the SEC is this year, but with everybody coming in and their abilities, I think they'll find a way to put it all together, especially as they get towards the end of the year, because the teams usually get stronger as the year goes on. So I can totally see it happening, and that's my prediction.
Well, there you have it, guys. And you don't have to wait long. We're filming this Sunday, game tomorrow as we're filming here. So let's get ready. It there is hope just because of so much talent, this hyped up freshman class ready to get after it. We'll see what happens, guys.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are going to be watching Monday Night Football because it's the Chiefs, but keep an eye on those Tigers playing the Tigers. It's going to be a good one.
ESPN Plus.
uh, if anything, have your phone going in the background because this could really give us an idea of what the season's going to be. And as always, here at Under the Arch Sports, we'll keep you updated with all things Mizzou. So thank you for watching.